Hello students, me again, Mr. Martin from Greenshoots with another tutorial for you for Scratch programming. I hope you had a lot of success in building the last Scratch program, the dance party, and I hope you also learned a lot from this and had a lot of fun at the same time. Today we are going to learn something a little different, using some of the other tools that we can use in Scratch. Now, I was thinking for a project, what does most of my students like? What are their interests? And most of my students really enjoy Harry Potter and magic and wizards. So today, we are going to learn how to cast some spells. There is going to be a dragon attacking a castle, and we are going to get a wizard to cast some spells to make the dragon not attack the castle. So, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is open up the normal file, the normal web page for Scratch. Click on Create and get to this page again, back with the cat, and again we don't need the cat. On the second tab here I have all of the code for this program and my sprites. Let's see what it does. Okay, so we've got some instructions on the page here that says press 1, 2 or 3 for spells and press space to reset. So let's try it out and see what happens. First I'm going to press number 1. Okay, let's press number 1 again. And again. So, you can see there's a few things going on here. To start with, the dragon starts to breathe some fire. The wizard Toad, the frog down in the bottom here, he shouts to the wizard for help. And the wizard casts a spell, and then he changes the colour of the dragon. What happens if I press number 2? And number 2 again. And number 2 again. So this time, the dragon goes to breathe some fire, the frog shouts for protection, and the wizard casts another spell, but this time the spell is different. This is called a mosaic in Scratch, and it multiplies the dragon by dividing the ratio of its size. So you can see now there's lots and lots of tiny dragons, and this will get smaller the more times I run the spell number 2. Smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's no end to this. They will keep on getting smaller and smaller and more, dividing by the square of the number and the ratio, until they basically don't look like dragons anymore and just look like some computer code on a screen. We know that spacebar is reset, so let's reset. But first, if we cast spell number 1 after pressing, well, let's press the reset. Space resets in. We know that number 1 changes the colour, and number 2 divides the dragon. So if we cast number 2 and then cast number 1, now we have lots of different coloured dragons. So let's press space to reset. Back to the beginning and test number 3. What's number 3 spell? Did you see that? So, the dragon has disappeared. He's cast an invisibility spell or casting away from the castle. Exactly the same kind of process. The dragon breathes fire, the toad shouts, the wizard casts a spell, and the dragon disappears. We press spacebar and he comes back. So, let's take a look at the code and see how we program this. The first thing that we need to do, as always, is if we know what background we would like, is to select a background. And this background is castle number 3. So let's put that in. And we know we need a wizard, we need a dragon, and we need a wizard toad. So let's find our wizard. Let's find the dragon. Dragon is first, the D. Then we need another sprite, we need the wizard. There he is. And we need the wizard toad. The next thing that we need to do is to change their location and their sizes. I have the wizard standing up on the stairs. He's too big there, so let's shrink him down. Again, I will try 50. 50 looks good, he looks like the right size. I will put the toad over here in the corner. And I will shrink him down a little bit, maybe to 60% of his size. Now the dragon here, he's probably the right size because dragons are very big. I'm going to move him across a little. Did you notice he's facing in the wrong direction? If we go up to the costumes tab, we can see that he's still facing the same direction. Now what we need to do is change his direction. And we do this by using the flip horizontal. Horizontal means the x-axis, and flip means the turn around. So we click this once, and he faces the other way. If we were to use the vertical axis, this would flip him upside down. But we don't want this, this would be very silly. So, here we have our dragon, we have the wizard, and we have the toad. Let's start with the wizard code. You can see here I've got 3 sets of instructions for the wizard, 1 for each spell. And you will notice that they're all very similar. So, for spell number 1, to change the colour, I've got when the number 1 key is pressed, I want the wizard to wait for half a second, 0.5 seconds. Then I want him to save the spell, Wingardium Leviosa, for 1 second. Then I want him to switch his costume so that he looks like he's pointing his finger. Then I want to play a sound, which is magic spell. And then I want him to switch back to his original costume, so he's standing just like he is now. So let's give this a go. We have the wizard. We go to the code. First we need an event. When the space bar is pressed, do something. But we don't want the space bar, we want the number 1. When the number 1 is pressed, what do we want him to do? We want him to wait half a second and say this, Wingardium Leviosa. I'm going to just copy and paste that across, just to save a little bit of time. First we go to control, we want him to wait for 0.5 seconds. Then we want him to say Wingardium Leviosa. This is under looks because even though he is saying it, it is not audio, it is just appearing on the screen. So it looks like he is saying this spell. Say hello, change that to Wingardium Leviosa, and let's keep it at 1 second. I think this is long enough. Then we want to switch the costume to costume C, because if we look in the code, costume 2 is in waving, costume 3 is in pointing, wizard C, and this looks like he's casting the spell. So, then we want him to change his looks, switch costume 2, and select wizard C. The next thing we want him to do is to play the sound, magic spell, and then switch the costume back to the original. So, sound, play sound, magic spell until the scene is finished, and then switch costume to Wizard C. And if we run this by pressing the button number 1, we can see that he does this. Perfect. Let's do this again for the other code. Now, as I said here, you can see on my code, they're all very, very similar. There's different words in this for the different spells, and different numbers for which number we want to press. Other than that, they're very similar. So to save time, we are just going to take this one, right click, and duplicate. Left click to put it down, and right click again, duplicate, and then put this one down. Okay, now we want the second spell to be activated by the number 2. So let's go ahead and change that right away. And we want the third spell to be activated by spell number 3. So let's do that. Everything else is the same. Let's just double check. Yes, there's nothing else that's changing. It's the same sound and the same spell. So now what we should have is that when we press number 1, the wizard casts the spell Wingardium Leviosa. Then, for number 2, let's check that. There we go. For number 2, when number 2 is pressed, we want him to say Expecto Patronum, which is a very famous Harry Potter spell. And for spell number 3 is another very famous Harry Potter spell, Expelliarmus. So, we press 1, Wingardium Leviosa. We press 2, Expecto Patronum. We press 3, Expelliarmus. Perfect. That is the wizard complete. Next, we need to consider the dragon. The dragon's code is here. And the dragon also has 3 bits of code. These 3 here, each to tell him to do something when the spells are cast. So, here, first off, we have when spell 1 is pressed, we want the dragon to switch to the Dragon C costume. This makes him look like he's breathing fire, as we can see in the costumes. This is Dragon 1, how he starts. Dragon 2 makes him look like he's flying, and Dragon 3 makes him look like he's breathing fire. So, let's put that in. We want when this number 1 is pressed, we want him to switch to costume Dragon C. Then we want him to wait 2 seconds to give the wizard time to cast his spell. Then we want the dragon to change his colour and switch back to the original to stop costume to stop him from breathing fire. So we want him to change his colour. This is a look effect. Change colour effect by 25. Then sorry, we forgot to wait. We need to wait 2 seconds before he does this, to give the wizard some time to cast his spell. Then we want to switch back to the original costume for Dragon A. So when we press number 1 now, both the wizard and the dragon are going to be activated by the pressing of number 1. The wizard is going to cast the spell, and the dragon is going to breathe fire and then have the spell cast on him and turned in a different colour. Okay. You can see that he's turning around, and this is because I have not changed the dragon C. I have not flipped the horizontal to be the same. So when it switches to the costume, he's facing the wrong way. But now I have flipped the horizontal. We can see he changes colour and stops breathing fire. Every time we press, he changes a new colour. And you can play with this number here for the change colour effect, and this will change the colour more rapidly. So the colours are not as related to each other. Instead of going from a light blue to a dark blue, it changes colour from blue to a different colour completely. From purple to orange and so forth. But I like it at 25, so I'm going to keep it there, because it matches my project. So that's the first one done. And as you can see, the other pieces of code, just like the wizard, are very, very similar for spell 2 and spell 3. They just have different effects. The first spell has the changed colour. The second spell changes the mosaic effect, which is what makes him divide up into many, many dragons. And number 3, we have hide. Hide makes him disappear. So, these are very similar. So what I'm going to do is duplicate to save time. And then we just need to make sure that we attach the relevant blocks and change the values. Let's get rid of this one. We've already got our number 1, so we need a number 2. This is spell number 2. And this is spell number 3. Okay. So, we do need to change some things still. We don't want every spell to change his colour. So let's delete this block and replace it with the mosaic effect. As you can see, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to look for the relevant block. And it's actually the same block. So you can see, instead of changing the colour effect by 25, all we need to do is change the effect that's in here. These are all different effects, and we are going to pick the mosaic one. So when we run, and then we're going to switch the costume back. So when we press number 2, it works. If we change this effect to fisheye, for example, it gives a different effect. Whirl, pixel, but we want a mosaic. This is perfect for our purposes at the moment. The last spell, we just want him to hide. We want him to wait 2 seconds and then hide. So all of this is fine, we don't need this. What we need is the hide. Now if we press number 3, there, he's gone. The last bit that we need for the dragon is this bit up here, to say that when the space bar is pressed, it clears all of the spells off and the graphical effects off the dragon, resets him back to costume A, and the show button will bring him back onto the screen. So, event, when the space bar key is pressed, please make the dragon clear all graphical effects, switch back to costume A so that he's no longer breathing fire, and then we want to use the show. Because of course we need this. If we're going to hide him on the spell of number 3, we also need to be able to show him. So what happens when we press space now is he comes back. So if we press 3 to make him disappear, press space and he comes back. If we press 1 to cast the spell to make him change colour, pressing space gets rid of the colour. And the same for the mosaic. Perfect. So all we've got left to do is the toad, the wizard toad. And I just put him in here as a bit of fun. You can see from my code here, I added these 3 little bits in as well, so that the toad has something to do in the scene. And these are all also linked again to when 1 is pressed, when 2 is pressed, when 3 is pressed. So when you press number 1, the wizard, the dragon and the frog are all active. And here we can see that when number 1 is pressed, the toad should say "get in" for 1 second, and then it should play the croaking sound that the frog makes. And when we press number 2, the frog will say "protect me" for 1 second and play the sound that a frog makes, a croak. And finally number 3, when number 3 is pressed, we want the frog to say goodbye to the dragon for 1 second, and then he croaks, and then the dragon will disappear. So let's go and put that in. First we need an event. When number 1 is pressed, we want him to say something for 1 second. We want him to say "get in" to the wizard for 1 second, and then we want to make him make a sound. Play sound, and we already have croaking here because it's already in the sounds, because this is a sound that a toad makes. Perfect. Now all we need to do is duplicate this twice for buttons number 2 and 3. We press number 2, we change this one to number 3. We want him to say something different to make it interesting. So for number 2, I want him to say "protect me" to the wizard. And for number 3, when the dragon is disappearing, before he disappears, we want the frog to say goodbye. So let's test that. First, number 1. Then number 2. And then number 3. Perfect. And then spacebar brings the dragon back and we can start again. Now you can do this as many times as you want. You could create as many different spells as you wanted and use all of the different effects. And I highly encourage you to first make the project exactly as I have done it so that you understand my instructions. But then once you have the project like this, please feel free to add things, to change things, and to play around and have some fun. The last thing that we need to do before we finish is to make sure that we save our project. To do this, we need to give our project a name. We're going to name ours, this one, Wizard Spells Tutorial. And press enter. And this will take a few seconds and then it will change. And we go to File. And then we go to Save Now. And then this will save in our project. Our project file is up in the top right hand corner here. And this will show us all of the different projects that we have saved and worked on so that we can come back to them and change them, or we can upload them to Scratch and share them with other people. And that's it. So, have a good go at that and let me know what you think.